What's up, everyone? My name is Anthony, and in today's video, I want to discuss exactly what does a data analyst actually do, right? What does a data analyst do on a day-to-day basis? Now, if you're new to this channel, my sincere request is that you follow because I've got a lot of great content coming your way that you certainly don't want to miss. Okay, what does a data analyst actually do? Now, one of the things that I've learned over the years is words or sentences have meaning in context, right? Who is asking this question? What's the context that we find ourselves in to be asking this question, right? If you are asking this question as a data analyst, then you want to know what your day-to-day work looks like. What's the process of executing your task? What is expected of you as a data analyst? But if you are a CEO of a company or you're a recruiter, you're in HR, you are seeing a data analyst from a different perspective, from a different light. They don't just collect, transform, analyze data. They do it for a reason. So we're going to discuss all of this in detail. So stay tuned. Hopefully this video helps one or two of you out there. Okay, so let's start. What is a data analyst? Well, if I'm a data analyst, well, then I'm a professional who collects, right? Who collects, processes, and performs statistical analysis on data. Yes, there are data sets out there, stored in databases, stored in Excel sheets, whatever. My job is to go collect, gather that data, process it, perform statistical analysis, maybe descriptive analysis, or any kind of analysis out there on that data set. But it's not an end in itself, right? There's a reason for me analyzing that data. And the reason is, or the purpose is to transform that data into actionable insights for business decisions. And this is so critical, right? If a CEO or a hiring manager is hiring you, they're hiring you with the intention of you having the technical prowess, the soft skills, the analytical skills, the tool command, etc., to be able to transform data, raw data, into actionable insights. That's the end in mind. So you basically act as a bridge between the technical data and the business strategies. Companies have goals, they have problems, they have desires, there is data, and your job is to collect that data, draw the necessary actionable insights, present it to them so that they can make decisions to achieve either their goals, desires, or to solve the problems that they might have. That's the context of a data analyst and what a data analyst is truly doing in its principle. And so let's just look at some practical examples here, right? A data analyst is brought into an organization to help them to identify, the right customer segment. And they use data, right? You analyze the data to realize that, okay, for ABC company, this is the right customer segment, and therefore they can target their marketing campaign. A data analyst can also look at the operational processes, collect the data to look at, how business and the processes are running. What can we improve? What are the things we need to change based on the data? You can conduct some type of diagnostic assessment of the current processes. And by virtue of your analysis, you can prescribe some, different methodologies, different ways in which we can optimize our operational processes. Forecasting of sales, right? Be it an e-com business, be it a manufacturing business, whatever. A data analyst is brought in to help them to forecast sales, to help them to forecast demand at specific seasons, specific intervals. They analyze the previous data in the market, data of competitors. All of this work is to provide actionable insights, like I said, so that the business can make decisions. And this has direct implication on, their costs, on their revenues and the profits that they generate. Detecting fraud patterns. If you work in any sort of banking or financial institutions, you can sort of analyze previous data, look at the patterns as far as fraudulent activities is concerned, and be able to sort of detect so that you can help us to prescribe relevant, things that we need to do to be able to prohibit these fraudulent activities. Measuring KPIs, right? Maybe we've carried out a marketing campaign. We want to understand whether it's been effective or not. You want somebody that can analyze the data and provide those actionable insights. Now, what I'm doing is really trying to help you understand that data analysis is not an end in itself. There is a goal. And the goal is ultimately to help a business achieve or an institution achieve their goals, their desires, their ambitions, whether it's to make more money, make more profit, or to help them solve specific problems, help them have an understanding of some of these problems and prescribe some solutions. So this is a business context. Then you have healthcare. Maybe you want to understand potential disease outbreaks that are going to come because of a specific activity, because of patterns that we've recognized in the past. A data analyst's job will be to collect that data so that they can provide us with those actionable insights. Improving patients' outcome. If you work for any healthcare institution, you want to look at the data and then help us to prescribe specific outcomes that will help improve the patient's life. And then new treatments, right? It's all data. We have artificial intelligence today, right? We have all these automation tools that are coming into the market space that they are all based on data and data analysis at the core. Government examples, understanding population trends. Where are we? How many? What's the demographics? What's the sort of the division between males and female children? All these things have direct implication in the policies and things that we do as a country, as a government. Public services, right? Housing associations, and how many people are on the housing list, how many people are visiting the healthcare facilities. All of these things have direct implication on how money is spent, budgets are invested, how much waste needs to be removed. They inform policies. A data analyst is really integrated into the entire fabric of civilization as we know it. Because we have different problems, different departmental, government, healthcare, business. And if you think about AI, which has taken over what we're doing, you have clear understanding that data and data analysts are intrinsic in the entire operations of the world, as it were. Okay, now how do you do this, right? Knowing fully the purpose of what you're trying to do, well, you have a process, right? First is to collect data, right? You collect the data, right, by gathering these data from different places, different sources, database, API, surveys, right, from social media, whatever, right? In some cases, as a data analyst, you probably have the end-to-end process yourself where you're collecting the data all the way to, the other things I'm going to be mentioning here. Or you'll be working with data engineers whose job is to extract, right, transform and load the data for yourself, right? It depends on the context. Sometimes you're just working with data exercises just via Excel. Sometimes you need to employ the services of, using different tools from maybe you're working with databases, so SQL and, Python. All these things are very critical, but data collection is the very first thing you need to do, right? Then you need to clean the data, right? We're looking at errors. We're looking at inconsistencies. We're looking at missing values. Maybe some formats and units needs to be changed and standardized, duplicates, whatever. You've got to clean the data, right? Then we're talking about now structuring and organizing the data transformation, because you're now about to sort of venture into the next stage of analysis or analyzing the data. You need to structure it. Maybe you've got to look at some aggregation exercise or filtering. All that stuff is necessary for you to bring some structure and order to your data so that you can move to the next phase of actually analyzing the data. And here's where you're going to be applying statistical methods, prescriptive analysis, descriptive analysis, predictive analysis. This is where statistics, as you know, it becomes very important. Mean, median, mode, all of these sort of jargons that we all learned in school and we didn't like it, right? This is the analytical work, hypothesis testing, all this stuff, right? Because this is where you're going to be generating insights. We talked about the purpose of data analysis. You're generating insights here, right? And then you've generated the insights, but the insight is useful to you. You've got to now create it in sort of consumable way, in a way that we can all understand the insights. And this leads to the next phase, which is really to create visualizations necessary for us to be able to find the findings in a much more clearer way, right? So you create charts, graphs, dashboards that all help to communicate different findings in a very clear, succinct way. Now, after you've done that, you're ultimately going to be presenting it. So creating some type of reports, maybe in Word, in Excel, whatever, and then present it to the different stakeholders. Now, I do this on a day-to-day basis. And quite honestly, this process is exactly what it is, right? It's almost like I don't want to say I don't want to say it's a sequential process, but it has some sequential element to it that you can only move to cleaning when you're done with collection, and you can only move to transformation when you're pretty done with your cleaning exercise, and you can begin to analyze. In some cases, if you're working with data engineers who go to the extent of cleaning and transforming it for you, then your job is basically to analyze and provide some visualization exercise and report on it. Okay, tools of the trade. Now, if you're a data analyst, the tools that you work with will be specific to the context, specific to the organization, and specific to how the data is stored and utilized within that organization. If you're in an organization that typically just works with Excel, and you'd be surprised how many organizations just rely heavily on Excel as the basis for managing their data, right? Even large government institutions, most of them don't go into databases, to be perfectly honest with you. You could only just be working with, Excel and Power BI, right? But there are instances in most technological institutions, most more advanced. I don't want to say advanced because it really doesn't, it's not a question of advanced. It's just a question of preference, and also the context that you find yourself will require you to have programming language exercise, right? Because you're working with a skill, sorry, because they're working with maybe, databases like MySQL, PostgreSQL, and so they need somebody that can query the database using structured query language, or sort of use Python as a means of data manipulation, data transformation, and also data visualization, and maybe R, whatever, right? The tool or the tools that you use will be specific to your context. So the statistical tools, SPSS, SAS, BI tools or platforms, you've got Looker, Domo, Google Data Studio, and like I said, visualization tools, you've got Tableau, Power BI, and Excel can be a means of creating different charts to visualize as well. And yeah, the go-to here is the more skills you have, the more useful you can be to the CEO, right? The more useful you can be to the organization, you can be to the department, you can be to the institution. That's the point. But the goal is that you use these skills and these tools, as it were, to be able to now draw those actionable insights that you've transformed from the raw data. So what's the life cycle, right? What's the life cycle of data analysis or data analyst? Well, typically, the scenario that I always find myself is somebody comes up to me with a particular problem or a particular goal, and we have to discuss it. All right, this is what it is. This is the current state that we find things, and we want to understand how to maybe improve it, or how to solve it, or what we need to do in order to achieve specific goals. So there's the ask phase, right? And then there's a preparation phase. This is where you're collecting data and cleaning that data, right? You collect the data, clean that data. We've talked a lot about it. Then the processing. This is the transformation bit, or this is where you're organizing and structuring that data, by filtering, aggregation, etc., because you're going to go into the analysis part, and where you apply the statistical methods, right? And you're able to now move on to the share phase, where you visualize, you create your Power BI chart, also dashboards, to visualize and to communicate your findings. And then finally, the organization, you can present it to them, and they can make decisions as a result of the recommendations that you have drawn from the insights. Okay, so that's sort of the life cycle, and you'll be working with different people at specific times. There's a lot of stakeholder engagement throughout this whole process, and that should not be undermined. There's a lot of back and forth. You can't be a very good data analyst if you just work in silo. You have to ask the right questions. You have to think through the stuff, and that leads us to the skills that you require. And I feel like the skills are never mentioned in detail because they're so critical. I don't think technical skills trump soft skills, and I don't think soft skills trumps sort of technical skills. I think they're all equally important. If you think about statistical skills here, we're talking about, the application of statistical methods, right, to the data to identify different trends, the patterns, relationships, or, you're using regression analysis or descriptive analysis to be able to determine different relationships, etc. What about database querying? I talked about it previously. Again, you are retrieving data using structured query language, SQL, right? So you would need to extract information or data from the databases that you're using, and you have to be able to use structured query language. Programming, right? Maybe your organization works with, R or Python. All of it is for data manipulation. They're all for, data analysis, data visualization, etc. And then data modeling. This involves literally, creating different models to represent the data structures and the relationships of the data. Now, like I said, the technical skills don't necessarily override the soft skills. You still need to have critical thinking. This is about thinking holistically about the data and mentally putting together your data and thinking about what you're trying to do, thinking about the problems you're trying to solve, thinking about thinking about things in a much more systematic, holistic, wholesome way. And it also means you've got to engage different people to be able to think about it in a different perspective. That's why I started my conversation by saying, who's asking that question? What does a data analyst does? That's critical thinking, right? Is it the data analyst that's asking it, or is it the organization, the employer, the CEO, the C-suite officials, et cetera, et cetera? Problem solving capabilities. Somebody that can think critically in a way, they can ask the right questions about the problem and they can investigate thoroughly to come up with specific or different solutions at different times for different purposes. Communication. I've seen data analysts that are very wonderful at the statistical work, but then are not able to, communicate to the need or communicate to the problem or communicate in such a way that they can help people see the direct correlation between the things that they have found out, the insights that they have found out, and its sort of direct impact on the things that the organization is doing or the institution is looking to solve as problems or the desires they might have. Business acumen. Understanding the business context that people find themselves and the relationship between the data that you have and the problems that they have and the sort of the market dynamics. And all of these plays a very key role in whether or not you can be a very good data analyst. Curiosity, ever learning. You can't be a data analyst who's not necessarily out there, curious and constantly sort of figuring out how things work. So technical skills and soft skills. All right, career path. Typically, you start your work as a junior data analyst, right? And then you will grow to become a data analyst. These roles gradually, because of artificial intelligence, I'm a little bit, whatever about them, because AI can do quite a significant number of work. So junior data analyst, unless you're going through the apprenticeship route, it's kind of hard to find them lately. So you probably will start here. But if you have AI, you can easily sort of prepare yourself in a much, much better way, to start as a data analyst. And then eventually you go on to become a senior data analyst and then analytics manager. Some go on to specialize, maybe in marketing, maybe marketing analyst, financial analyst, operations analyst, security analyst, whatever the analyst exercise that you want to do or whatever the specialization that you want to focus on. And then the advanced bit is the data scientists, the machine learning experts, the AI engineers, the business intelligence managers, the analytics director. But the goal is that the point is that there is sort of career path and career progression in this particular domain. AI has changed this landscape. Let's be very honest here. A lot of the sort of manual, technical, critical thinking part, so technical stuff, technical skills, as it were, can be easily done by artificial intelligence. And so more and more, those that have that soft skills are gradually elevating into the sort of the leadership roles because they can just do the bolt and nut stuff. You can just get AI to sort of present it for you in a much more feasible way. And then if you know how to write code, it's even easier. You can just tell AI to write this particular code to present it in a specific way. So you've got to think about all of this as you sort of look at data analysis as an option or as a career. Okay, let's look at some key certifications. And here I've got technical certifications, database certifications, statistical programming, and industry specific. And the data analyst world is very, very well sort of matured. You have really, this is not the best kind of way of sort of defining this. This is just, there are general data analyst certifications, right? So your Microsoft Power BI data analyst, PL300, IBM has a data analyst certification, Google has one, Tableau, these are sort of general ones specific to maybe, so IBM, Google Data Analyst is more general, and you can say sort of the Power BIs and the Tableaus are specific to the tools of the trade. Then database specific, right? Azure Data Fundamentals, Oracle Database, SQL, Associates. These are specific to the different databases and the companies that offer these database systems. And then statistics, right? SAS certified data analysts, right? Python, this is where you're focusing a lot on your statistical acumen and you're focusing a lot on, using, languages such as Python, et cetera, et cetera. My thing with all of these, and then of course you've got this industry specific ones, but my thing with all these certifications is that it's very necessary. They're not the be all and end all in terms of you being able to find work. This is a skill-based economy. And so certifications play a role. I don't want to undermine its importance in whatever you're doing, but I want you to know that in addition to your certification, you also need to have, the right skills, right? A portfolio, a heavy duty portfolio that is specific to the problems that the organization you're looking to go into, and just really have a strong command of the tools. Sorry if you can hear any background noise. Okay, so that's really the sort of the key certification. So let's just look at it. Now, in conclusion, a data analyst transforms raw information into valuable insights. They combine technical expertise with business understanding, and their work involves or derives informed decisions making across, sorry, their work drives, informed decision making across organizations, and a critical role in today's data-driven business environment. Yes, data analysts are very, very needed in the environment that we find ourselves, in the era of artificial intelligence, in the era of data. Data analysts are critical assets to any organization. There are organizations that are very well versed and very, sort of advanced in this data analysis field. And then there are organizations that are beginning the journey. You can find pretty much anyone at different stages of the pendulum. But I want you to know that AI has come and it has direct implication on, the work that data analyst does. But the fundamentals, the thinking, the critical thinking stuff, the soft skills, all of those things are still necessary. Having a very good holistic idea of what a data analyst does, the reasons why they do what they do, and then their usefulness in any organization is key in ensuring that not only you get the role that you're looking for, but more importantly, you do it to the best of your abilities. Thank you very much, guys. All the best. Bye-bye.